There's a dangerous paradox in human psychology. If you help someone a little, they will love you. If you help them a lot, they will kill you. We are taught that generosity buys loyalty. That is a lie. Generosity creates debt, and debt doesn't create friends, it creates enemies. In 1957, psychologists gave this phenomenon a name: cognitive dissonance. The human ego cannot accept that it is dependent. So when you lend someone money they can't pay back, you don't make them feel grateful. You make them feel small, and the human mind has only one way to fix that feeling. It has to turn you into the villain. The friend who owes you money doesn't stop calling because they are busy. They stop calling because your face reminds them of their own failure. Now imagine that friend isn't a guy who owes you $500. Imagine he is a king who owes you $1 billion. He can't ghost you. He can't block your number. So he does the only thing his ego will allow him to do. He burns you alive. This is the story of the Knights Templar, the world's first international bankers, and how their generosity became their death warrant. But to understand why they died, you first have to understand the psychological trap they walked into, a trap that is likely waiting for you in your own life right now. The Templars started as warriors. Founded in 1119, their mission was simple: protect Christian pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem. They were monks with swords. They took vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They owned nothing personally. They answered to the Pope alone. And because they had nothing to gain, people trusted them with everything. That trust became the most profitable business model in the Middle Ages. Imagine a pilgrim traveling from Paris to Jerusalem. The roads are infested with bandits. Carrying gold is a death sentence. So the Templars invented a solution. The pilgrim deposits gold at the temple in Paris. He receives a coded letter. He travels across the continent, presents the letter in Jerusalem, and withdraws his gold. The Templars invented the traveler's check 5 centuries before banks existed. They invented the international wire transfer. By 1300, they had 15,000 members, 9,000 estates, their own navy, and were creditors to virtually every crown in Europe. They were the medieval SWIFT network, except they also had castles, armies, and diplomatic immunity. They seemed untouchable. But in becoming the world's lenders, they committed the fatal error of friendship. They helped the wrong man too much. And the man they helped was about to teach them a lesson in the dark side of gratitude. King Philip IV of France took the throne in 1285. Historians call him Philip the Fair. Beautiful face, ugly finances. Philip was ambitious, ruthless, and perpetually broke. He waged expensive wars and lost most of them. He debased the currency so many times, merchants refused his coins. In 1306, he expelled the Jews and seized their assets to cover his debts. Still not enough. So Philip did what desperate friends do. He borrowed from the Templars, again and again, the modern equivalent of over $1 billion. Money he could never repay without destroying his treasury. The Templars saved his kingdom. They saved his army. During a riot in Paris, Philip fled to the Templar fortress for safety. They were his greatest benefactors, and that is exactly why he had to destroy them. Every time Philip saw a Templar knight, he didn't see a savior. He saw a walking invoice. He saw a reminder that the most powerful king in Europe owed his survival to a group of monks. Here is where psychology enters the picture. Robert Greene calls it the trespass of gratitude. When you help someone too much, you give them 3 wounds. First, the status injury. You become the parent, they become the child. A king cannot be a child to his subjects. Second, the autonomy injury. Your presence reminds them of their failure. Your face is the invoice. Third, the reciprocity burden. An unpayable debt creates permanent imbalance, permanent shame, and shame doesn't stay quiet. It evolves. Psychologists have mapped 6 stages. If you have ever lent money to a friend, you will recognize this timeline immediately. Stage 1, gratitude, brief, warm. Thank you, you saved me. Stage 2, discomfort. The borrower starts avoiding you. Stage 3, rationalization. You're rich, you didn't need the money anyway. Stage 4, resentment. You think you're better than me. Stage 5, vilification. You gave me money because you wanted control. Stage 6, aggression. At stage 6, the mind breaks. To restore its own sense of worth, the debtor must destroy the creditor. Philip wasn't at stage 1, he was approaching stage 6. And for a king, the pressure was existential. Owing money to a religious order that answers only to the Pope, that is a threat to sovereignty. Philip knew he couldn't pay the debt with money, so he decided to pay it with blood. Consider Jakob Fugger, the German banker who financed Charles Vechter's election as Holy Roman Emperor. Fugger lent Charles a fortune. Charles won the crown. Then Fugger made a mistake. He wrote the emperor a letter. It is well known that your imperial majesty could not have gained the Roman crown without me. It was true, and it was suicidal. Charles never forgave the humiliation. The Fugger banking dynasty was eventually destroyed by royal defaults. Never remind a powerful man that he owes you. He already knows. That's why he hates you. Philip didn't wait for a letter. He planned a preemptive strike. But he had a problem. The Templars were heroes. You can't arrest them for lending you money. That makes you look like a deadbeat. To destroy them, Philip had to change the narrative. He couldn't cancel the debt. That would admit it existed. He had to make the Templars into monsters. If they were monsters, the debt was never legitimate. You don't owe demons anything. You owe them fire. Philip spent years gathering evidence. He placed his own puppet, Clement V, on the papal throne. He coordinated with officials across France in absolute secrecy. Then came Friday, October 13th, 1307. The date that gave us the superstition. At dawn, royal agents launched synchronized raids on every Templar fortress in France. 625 knights arrested in a single morning. The element of surprise was total. And the charges? Did Philip charge them with usury, with financial crimes? No, heresy, sodomy, spitting on the cross, worshipping a demon head called Baphomet. These were men who had died in the thousands fighting for the cross. But the charges didn't need to be true. They needed to be horrifying. Philip understood mob psychology. If you accuse a banker of greed, people shrug. If you accuse a monk of Satanism, people riot. Under torture, the knights confessed. Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, later recanted. Screaming the confessions were lies born of pain. It didn't matter. The legal machinery was already moving. Templar assets were seized. The Paris temple was emptied. The money went straight to Philip. The debt? Eliminated, not paid, erased. The creditor was dead, so the balance sheet was clean. In 1314, Jacques de Molay was burned at the stake on an island in the Seine. As the flames rose, legend says he cursed Philip and Pope Clement, summoning them before God's tribunal within a year. Both men were dead within months. But the real curse wasn't supernatural. It was the pattern itself, a pattern that repeats across history with mechanical precision. The Templars were not the first, and they were not the last. History does not record a single powerful man who was grateful for a debt he couldn't repay. It records a lot of dead creditors. In 1290, Edward the Fern expelled every Jew from England. English nobles owed them fortunes. The solution? Declare them enemies, seize their assets, cancel the debts. In the 1340s, the Peruzzi and Bardi banks financed Edward III's wars. When the bills came due, Edward defaulted and blamed them for predatory lending. Both houses collapsed. In 1451, Jacques Coeur was the richest merchant in France. He practically bought King Charles VII his country back. His reward? Arrest on fabricated charges. Charles reportedly said, "I owe him too much to allow him to live." Even nations follow the pattern. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing reparations on Germany. Every payment was a reminder of defeat. The resentment went political, then military. Hitler rose partly on the promise to break the chains of debt. When you can't pay a debt, you vilify the creditor. When the debt is national, you invade them. So what does this mean for you? For the $500 and the friend who won't return your calls? It means your friend isn't ungrateful. They're human. You accidentally made them feel small. And the human mind has only a few ways to restore its sense of size. One of them is making you the villain. The Templars thought they were buying loyalty with their gold. They were actually buying their own execution. They created an imbalance so massive that the only way to correct it was to remove one side of the scale. So how do you avoid the stake? Benjamin Franklin discovered the antidote by accident. He had a political rival who refused to speak to him. Instead of doing the rival a favor, Franklin asked for one. He asked to borrow a rare book from the man's library. The rival agreed. Afterward, he was friendlier than ever. This is cognitive dissonance in reverse. The rival's mind reasoned, "I helped him, so I must like him. Only a friend would lend a book to a friend." If you want to make a friend, don't do them a favor. Ask for one. Let them invest in you. Let them feel the helper's high. And if you must give, give small. Small favors can be reciprocated. A coffee today, lunch tomorrow. The balance stays even. Large favors cannot be repaid. When reciprocation is impossible, the receiver feels owned. Ownership breeds resentment. Resentment breeds vilification. Vilification breeds permission. When a debtor starts criticizing your character, they're not being unfair. They are preparing to betray you. The vilification always comes before the violence. Generosity isn't neutral. It's a power move. And power moves demand a response. Help someone a little, you're a friend. Help them too much, you're a threat. The biggest favor you can do for someone is never letting them owe you at all. Master the psychology before the psychology masters you. You should subscribe now to navigate the psychological traps that are waiting for you on the path to wealth.